Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I just wanted to make a bit of a small video to highlight and showcase what I have done for the past maybe week plus, ever since stepping away from PoE while waiting for more PoE. So we did put down PoE 2 for a little bit, and I did have a list of games I wanted to try, and I'm typically into the kind of the roguelike sort of things. I've played lots of like Binding of Isaac, I've played lots of Vampire Survivors style stuff, I've played Hades, all this type of stuff, and I'm into that kind of game. And so I had a list of games that I wanted to get around to, and I got around to 3 of them that I want to show off into this video. And then, of course, one of the 3 being some more Diablo 2, but modded Diablo 2 on the Resurrected client, and then it's just got a whole bunch of extra wacky shit. So I want to go over all 3 of these things just to show you what I've been doing, and maybe you want to kill some time with one of these games yourself. So to start with, it is this first game, which came out of kind of nowhere. It is Jotunnslayer Hordes of Hell, and it's basically, if you've followed the channel, very similar to Death Must Die, the game I played, I don't know, a few months back. And it's just another kind of Vampire Survivors genre, which I think at this point we call something like Bullet Heaven style games. It's in that sort of genre, that sort of wheelhouse. It's just you as a little character, got several different characters to pick from and stuff. That slowly takes on extra hordes that spawn against you, and you become more powerful. You make some choices. You have to do a few little activities, things, quests, whatever you want to call them, and then ultimately fight a boss or two. So they're pretty simple games. It's not too hard to grasp at all. It's just about your movement and some of your decision making, but typically, like, everything in the game can work pretty well. So you just, really what you're doing is just trying out builds, making a few combos, and having some fun just doing some mass murdering. This one is kind of like Nordic themed, so it's got Nordic gods. It's got, Thor and Odin and all that sort of shit. So similar to Death Must Die, where you have a few choices and allegiances and stuff. You instead are doing, like, you're pledging allegiance to a certain god, and then they give you a power. So that's kind of similar to Hades, I suppose. It's pretty simple. Otherwise, you just are trying to build up a bit of extra power. So it's not quite as deep as Death Must Die, because that one has like a big item customization system, whereas this game is just more about the passives that you gain as you level up and as you get gold and then buy passives and then build up your character more and more. You can spec into the trees of the gods as well. So it's more about the passives, and then a bit more about slowly powering up through doing more runs. It's pretty bare bones at the moment is the only problem. It's a $10 game, I think. It's still an early access thing, and it's got like 4 classes and like 4 gods, I think, and 2 tile sets to go through. One of the highlights for me, though, was the music. The music of it is really nice. Like, I played the game for, I don't know, 10 to 15 hours and just did in-game music the entire time, which is, a few kind of repetitive looped old Nordic-style songs. So it was, it was a pretty fitting of the theme, and I rather enjoyed it. So there are enough sort of classes and skills and characters to try it out for at least 10 hours. I'd say you get your money's worth for your $10, but if you'd rather wait till it's more complete, that's completely fair as well, because like I said, it's kind of bare bones, but it was fun enough for a good 10 plus hours. The main difference for this game versus the other ones is kind of the graphics. It looks a bit, shinier. It plays pretty well, and I just like the theme of the entire game as well. But it definitely needs quite a bit more for it to become a real contender on this sort of scene. So far, though, not too bad for the $10. The next game I tried was Magicraft. Now, this one I was already aware of basically how it's going to be, and just what I thought it would do for me. And I was pretty aware that it will be a game I will play and a game I will like in the end, because it has pretty big elements of games I've played and liked in the past. And basically, you can boil this one down to a literal crossover of Binding of Isaac and Noita. If you liked Binding of Isaac, if you liked Noita, there's an extremely strong chance you'll enjoy playing this game. If you've not played either of those, it's a little bit harder to grasp, but I'd still say there's some stuff there for you. But basically, the Binding of Isaac sort of gameplay is what you're getting here, because you get floors, you get rooms, you have to kill little monsters, you have projectiles to dodge, some traps to dodge, and then you progress through floors and eventually fight bosses, find relics, find items, stuff like that. And your build is basically going to be different every time. Of course, you can steer yourself in certain directions and kind of go towards certain builds. But yeah, it starts out from humble beginnings. It gets pretty crazy, and then it can get all the way crazy, just like a Binding of Isaac. But it's got a bit more of a Noita style system to it, and if you've played Noita, then you'll understand what I mean. That's all about the skills and the wand-based system that you have. So to actually make your builds and your characters do certain things, you have wands, which are basically your spells, and then customize those wands and make wacky combos. The good thing there is that you do have those target dummies with certain rooms that you can have little pit stops on, and you can actually test these combos out. So if you've never played Noita before, it's a bit more tough to grasp, because you won't really be fully intuitive with the wand system. But it's, it makes sense eventually, and then you understand what things are happening. So especially if you've played PoE before, you know that attaching things to skills and spells causes things to happen, and then you can attach crazier things, and then if thing happens, another thing happens, and then if that thing happens, another thing happens, and it all kind of just starts to make sense. But it can get a bit confusing and a bit convoluted, and that's why you have that little target dummy system as well. Overall, the game's pretty damn good. If you liked those other two kinds of games, it's got quite a lot that you can do in it. There's a lot of bosses, there's a good amount of floors, there's a lot of different spells and things to unlock, and it's pretty well polished. There's little puzzles and rooms that you have to do for just small memory games, or for the most part, just tiny little puzzles, which can be a bit annoying if you're not really trying to pay attention too much, but they're usually nothing too crazy or anything too in the way. But then, the appeal of this type of game is that you can try out lots of different shit, make your own little wacky builds, sometimes fail, sometimes not get the right stuff or the right RNG, and then just go, well, that run sucked, and hopefully we start again. But the mass appeal there is that sometimes it all comes together and you make some of the craziest, dumbest shit in any game you'll ever see. And I guess the goal is to kind of toe the line between having the best build, the craziest shit, and not quite crashing your PC. It's a never-ending sort of fight against that sort of stuff. And it can go all the way. So I do recommend it if you liked any of those games. A lot of people played a lot of Magicraft and loved it, and I was no different. I then, of course, came back to some D2. So this is D2 Resurrected, and it is a modded version. You can mod this game, but currently it's only really for single player, so offline, because Blizzard doesn't want you modding for the online community. But some people have started probably a year and a half ago or so, started making mods for this game, and some of them are pretty good. They're bringing a lot to the game. So if you're an old D2 fanboy like I am, then this is just more D2, and with a lot of different fixes up. So you can have, for example, more enemies to kill, just a few extra, boss fights and stuff. You can have tougher enemies. You can have rebalancing of the game. There's a lot more items to go for. So, we're talking 3 to 4 times more uniques and set items, something like that. Huge expansion on the rune word system. We're talking rebalance of skills, so that certain skills that were pretty bad and unusable are now proper builds, and you can do characters that you definitely previously couldn't really do. A pretty important one is the splash charm. So you start out with a splash charm that lets your attacks do splash, so that you can actually do proper single target attacks and play the game with those. There's a lot to love in these mods. This one is called Reimagined, and I played it once before a few months back, and I'm playing it again now because there was a big 2.0 update that basically did even more of what it did previously, and it also has a lot of polish. So your stash system's bigger, and it's got some pretty convenient things for your breakpoint tracking, and yeah, overall it's like just bringing kind of Diablo 2 a bit more into the 2025 gaming scene. And if you liked D2 back then chances are you'll enjoy going through and discovering all kinds of new shit in this game, because it's staying pretty true to what D2 was and is, and the gameplay is feeling very similar. The loot hunt is very similar. It's just more of everything. It sucks that it can't be online, but the only real difference there is that you're not going to be like trading with people too much, and that does typically suck, and it is hard to kind of grasp your head around to begin with. But given that you can just set up to higher levels of players, get much more density of monsters, and then find much more loot, you're not really struggling to buy things ever. You have an up rune drop rate. You can get way more uniques and sets and rares because of like the drop rates there as well. And typically you are just finding lots of your own shit, and it's a pretty cruisy experience. And then you're just enjoying what they've cooked up for you, the new uniques, the new sets, and looking around at all the new rune words. Your merc is quite a bit more of an end game sort of thing that you can gear up. And then ultimately, getting through Hell is pretty tough in this mod, so there's a lot to kind of min-max and upgrade of your character. So I've played a few characters this time around, just got one done because that's all time would allow until PoE 1 starts up in just a couple more days. And I do thoroughly look forward to that. If it wasn't for that, I'd probably play just a couple more characters on this D2 mod. But for now, we will put it down. Lots of cool builds for you to try though, and just fun to have, I suppose, if you're into D2. If you're not, then this is probably still a decent starting point for trying D2 for the first time, because it fixes a lot of the things that you may have found annoying a long time ago, the game that was back then. So anyway, that's about it. Just wanted to share my experiences for the past week plus or so for the 3 games I've been playing. These are all games that I've enjoyed to a certain amount of extent, that I'm happy to, pass on the reviews here. So with that, we'll see you in the PoE 1 League. I'll hopefully have a video talking about what I'm going to play and what maybe you can play as well in the next couple days. But for now, this is all I got. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.